Welcome, my fans and sneak peepers. I am Mrs. Demanding. Now, before we begin, you can find this podcast show in iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play Music, TuneIn, and Stitcher. So download this episode, unplug from life, and dive all into episode 3 of the Mr. Difficult and Mrs. Demanding Keeping It Real podcast. Today, we are discussing bagging nuts versus buttering buns.
Arrogance comes naturally, humility not so much, dismissive and irreverent to all, unapologetic. Until I met my wife, that is. I am Mr. Difficult.
You are lucky to have a wife and should thank the heavens to have me. I am Mrs. Demanding. I don't ask for much because I expect it all. Nothing but the best, and I don't settle for less. Now, as always, we are keeping it real, and this episode is turning up the heat. What does bagging nuts and buttering buns mean? Well, buttering buns has definitely been prominent in the headlines. It is just called something else. Moreover, depending on how heavily the bun is buttered, things range from harassment to a physical sexual violation. Has it happened to you? It has definitely happened to us. Finally, bagging nuts gives a new meaning to copping a feel. Finally, climb aboard and enjoy the entire show, because I am ending it with plenty of ridiculous honesty. Once the podcast episode ends, we are keeping it going on our website with this episode's real talk questions. Bagging nuts versus buttering buns.
Okay, what does that mean? What does that mean in proper English?
I am speaking English for those
Right.
non-English speaking people that I know. I'll start with buttering buns first. Buttering buns is a term that I came up with to highlight or piggyback on what's been happening to women for years, for generations, as far as being groped or molested or just put in uncomfortable situations in a sexual manner. So the purpose of this show is to flip the script and make the men feel or experience what we as women have gone through and experienced, hence the term bagging nuts. Now, what's bagging nuts? That's basically me going around grabbing men's nuts and copping a feel whenever I feel it's necessary to do so. If I want to see how big their package is, or I'm just feeling frisky. So that's what bagging nuts is. And buttering buns is, when you take a warm bun and you put a little bit of butter on it and it makes it so delicious and just delectable. I think that's what men are experiencing when they're touching us without our permission. I don't know if they think they're giving us something that's just amazing, or if they're getting off on it themselves. So buttering buns is a metaphor, and bagging nuts is exactly that. Going after a man's package and making it your own. That's what bagging means.
Okay. Now that makes sense. It's very entertaining, this sort of description. But I understand. I understand now. So
how would you feel if someone bagged your nuts?
I would feel definitely violated. I would feel violated. I'd feel sort of like, what the hell is this nonsense,
If it was an attractive woman.
If I was single, yeah, I mean, of course I had no problems with it. Why would I have any problems with it?
So you wouldn't have a problem with this being single? A strange, attractive woman comes up to you.
Yeah, it depends. I think it depends on the circumstance, right? I mean, if I'm let's say I'm at a club or a bar or something, and I'm there to meet people. So hey, if someone wants to grab something, that sounds good to me.
Oh.
It's only if I'm single. Yeah, sure.
But an accidental nut grab, slip?
Well, I think part of it is, I think it's just, I think logistically it's just harder, right, to accidentally grab someone's nuts, right?
Then how?
It's a very deliberate sort of.
And groping a woman is not?
No, I think both are, but somehow it's yes, with all of this talk going on, I think it's been going on forever, hasn't it? The whole thing.
I think it's been going on for a very damn long time, and
yes,
until
and the tragedy. I think the funny thing here is, not so funny actually, but the sad thing here, in fact, is that if a woman were to go around doing all of these things,
bagging nuts,
right, she would be called a slut.
Yeah, well, yes,
right. If a man does it, then I think for the longest time, I think it's sort of excuses have been made for men.
So you're saying
elaborate ones.
There's some gender roles and society expectations, double standards coming into play.
Absolutely.
So the day that it's a woman's world, would you welcome it? When women rule everything, would you like to feel?
Well, you mean like in our household, right? Yeah. Well, how's that working out for you?
It's great.
Well, there you go. I think you have your answer. Yeah.
But I personally
don't. You think it's so? Let me answer. Without asking another question. So the point is, yes, because don't you think it's about time?
But why not?
I mean, just from an evolutionary, perspective, right? Why not?
But from an evolutionary perspective, if you look at what we are taught, the man takes care of the woman and the family. So technically, we are positioned or seen as an object or property.
Yeah, but in today's world, I personally know two people who are very happy house husbands, and their families are very happy. So it's entirely possible in today's world, right? That any woman is more than equal to any man, I think.
So you're saying there is change happening?
Yes.
It's been slow, but you think with all these incidents going on, it's been put on a turbo boost? It's been given a turbo boost?
There is, there's still a bit of double standard, I'd say. There's one particular case I can think of. There's a former fantastic internet company, which we won't name, but they used to be like top in their field before, another company came and sort of dethroned them. And that company had a female CEO, right? And there was so much sort of prying into her personal life, and every move of hers was scrutinized every single day, right? Every wrong move she made was highlighted. And I think that had something to do with sexism, right? Because plenty of chief executives step into a chief executive role and screw up. And they continually screw up.
Correct. Have affairs with the secretaries.
And, they do all kinds of things. But I don't see those articles, right? And later, sometimes you find out, right? But this lady, she was constantly hounded, right, about what she did, all her wrong missteps and so on, right? Right from a corporate perspective to even her personal life. And I think it was unfair.
So you're highlighting a point that women are held to a higher standard.
Yes.
We are the moral compass. We are, we are the ones that are setting the tone for future generations. But unfortunately, we don't have the power. So how can we be held to a higher moral standard, but those lessons aren't being translated into the male behavior and how they treat?
I think that's it, right? I think you've got to inculcate that kind of behavior and thought in young people today, right? And make them realize that this is that women are obviously equal to men, if and in many cases they in fact I read an article last month in the Harvard Business Review that said that in a study of women and men that was conducted over, I think it was 6 years, women actually had a lot. In fact, they were shown to be more effective at a lot of tasks, including all things like leadership and so on and so on. So I mean, that's just one study, which is fine. But the point is, I think we're all sort of realizing, right? Before, I think I would say probably before November, last November, we had sort of moved to a, let's be equal, right? Let's understand that people are equal, right? Sort of.
But it was a veil.
Yes.
It's clearly was a veil.
It clearly was a veil because it's all gone, right? It's all gone. It's
So
terrible.
We had a facade.
Yes, a very elaborate facade, which crumbled very quickly.
Which means that the real deal is that the groping and the molesting and the sexual harassment is prominent, and it hasn't gone away.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's quite sad, isn't it? Because people, a lot of people have come out with things that happened to them 30 years ago, 40 years ago. That's like an entire lifetime.
And they're in their 60s
People
now.
outside of the developed world don't even live to 30, 40 years in some cases.
Correct.
So it's quite sad that, and they're still being refuted.
Correct,
right?
being told a liar.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. As a male, I'm going to make the assumption that you haven't groped anyone without their permission. But if you were to do so, why would you do it? And what would you get out of it, hypothetically?
I think people just, they feel sort of entitled to doing whatever they want. And especially if they know there's a very good likelihood they're going to get away with it. So, the old sort of, the old ways of saying it is, what do you do when no one's watching?
Right.
Right. I think it's a character thing.
Character.
Yeah. That's it. What do you do when no one's watching? Or what do you do when you know you have absolute power over someone? And, what do you do in that situation? Right. Do you do the right thing or do you do whatever comes to mind? I think that's what it is.
So back to money, sex, and power.
Power. Power. Power is what it's about, unfortunately, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. It manifests itself in different ways, but this is another one.
That people getting off on this. Has this ever happened to you?
Yes, once.
And?
At work. Yeah. So basically, I was having a conversation with this lady, and suddenly, she happened to...
Where were you guys? Let's set the stage. Where were you sitting? Where were you having a meeting?
This is a corporate office, and I was, in fact, sort of sitting... maybe 3 feet away from her at a desk, right, on her desk, because I was showing her something that I thought was wrong.
So you're in a cubicle.
Correct. And we were talking, and it was all good, but I mean the content was fine. But she proceeded to put her hand on my thigh, dangerously close to the what's the term again? No. What's that term?
Oh, bagging nuts.
Nuts, right? Bagging nuts. Yeah. So it was almost that kind of situation. Yes.
So she almost bagged you.
I think about 13 years ago. Yeah.
And what went through your mind? How did you react?
I was just stunned because it had never happened to me, right? And now looking back, that's pretty much what it was. It was harassment.
So did you move her hand, or did she move it herself?
I sort of moved away. I got up from, and I sort of said, "Oh yeah, hey, I'll this is great. Thank you for the information." And I walked away, and I was dazed. Yes.
But you know what the funny thing is? You never shared that with me when it happened. We all worked together.
For a couple of years, yeah.
For a couple of years.
Yeah, I did not mention it to you.
Because I would have cut that bitch in half.
Yes, I'm sure you would have.
So the question is, why didn't you share it with me? I mean, why do you think it translated into the back of your mind?
So it's in a way, it's kind of similar to what we talked about earlier, right? Which is sometimes people don't want to think about these things because you want to push it to the back of your mind.
So why did you want to push it behind? Did it make you feel good that you're attractive, or did you feel raped?
No, it's sort of the classic thing, right? It's like, A, is someone going to believe me, and B, I mean, if I, like, this is why I think sometimes these sort of cases, they never make it, they never see the light of day, because half of the doubt is in your mind, which is, wow, okay, what just happened? And, how do you even start talking about it, right? Even now, I feel weird talking about it,
It's very
almost
uncomfortable.
as if I'm not supposed to talk about it. So, yeah, it's crazy.
And what was her reaction when you moved away? What was the look on her
Nothing.
face?
It was as if it never happened.
Wow.
So that means...
She's done it many times.
Exactly. So that means she was adept at doing it and just gauging the reaction, right?
And she knew that you were we married at that time?
No, we weren't married.
But we were definitely living together. And she was married.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's pretty insane. Pretty insane.
What about you? You've had a few incidences, haven't you?
I've definitely had a few instances. And I think the first one that I can remember, I was either a sophomore or junior in college, and I had a summer internship. And I was pretty young at that age, 20, 21, somewhere around there. And this internship was with a company in the middle of nowhere, and it was pretty much Amish town. So there weren't a lot of college educated women available in this professional environment. So when I arrived in the summer, it was like I was a fresh piece of meat for those professional guys that were single there and some that were married. So I recall sitting at the lunch table with some coworkers, and this dude, he would basically have his tongue out his mouth, flicking around like he was a snake, indicating, oral sex. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at my coworkers, and I'm like, okay, does anyone see this happening? And I didn't call him out because I thought someone else would say, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we're at work. Don't do that. She's young. I mean, because he was at least 10 years older than me. And he was just blatant. Or he would lift his pectoral muscles up and down in front of me and flexing and making these facial movements. And I was completely stunned because, one, no one came to my defense. Mm-hmm. No one corroborated what was happening. And if you are in an environment where no one's saying this is wrong, how do I even begin to speak to someone in HR or things like that when his own coworkers and peers are basically allowing it to happen?
Mm-hmm. Right. No one's speaking up.
No one's speaking up.
No one is saying this is wrong.
What are you doing?
Right.
Don't
Why
do
are you
this.
Doing this?
Right.
This is nonsense.
This is a young professional girl. So with his age and maybe
his
seniority within the company, he knew that he could.
So it's back to the same theme. It's the power, right? It's the power he had over people or his reputation or whatever it is, that he was so confident that he could do things like this.
But I was also very young. And when you have an older person preying on a younger person, there's a maturity level. There's a maturity level there. Sure. And they know how to take advantage of the system. I mean, this guy actually showed up to my bedroom window at the apartment I was staying in the summer. And I couldn't believe, like, one, how does he know where the hell I live? And two, what is going to happen? Like, is he going to break in? Is he going to climb through the window? And I didn't feel comfortable going to anyone because none of them offered to help. And none of them said, he's just crazy, ignore him. No one said anything. It was like one lady said, if it was me, I would be flattered. Of course, she was over the hill several times, but she wanted something like that because she wanted to feel desired. Well, that's not my motherfucking problem because I'm not looking for any of this. So it was a very traumatic experience, and thank goodness it did not escalate further than that. But as you said, you try to put it to the back of your mind as possible. But for me, it became a safety issue. Like, am I safe? Thank goodness the internship was only 2.5 months and I was able to leave and go back to college. But I didn't think about this for several years until recently. I completely forgot about it. You just move on.
Yeah, and it's very sad that it's quite sad that people have these experiences, and it's sort of now that these things are in the public consciousness, right? In the 2-minute news cycle,
right?
We're sort of thinking about this, right, all over again. And I'm sure it's true for everyone.
Well, this person's not even a celebrity or had that much power. So, I mean, what do you do when it's a quote unquote nobody who is pursuing you? I mean, no one's going to listen or take you seriously because this person's not famous. They're not wealthy. It's nothing.
No, I think it remains the same, right? I think the problem remains the same no matter what. Is someone going to believe me, right? I think it's just reflection of who we become, right? That the first question that comes to mind is someone going to believe me?
Do you believe yourself?
Yeah. Do you believe it happened? You're so stunned,
And that's what I said. Women, we are expected. Overall, I think men and women, we are expected to follow some social protocol as far as how we behave out in society. And when someone does something that's out of character or out of line, we are not equipped to deal with the shock that comes with, okay, this is not a part of our script. This is not a part of the day-to-day, how we're supposed to be engaging with one another. We don't know what to do. So, I mean, do you have any thoughts or suggestions about how we prepare ourselves better for these crazy-ass people who basically find ways to violate us? Because over the years, I think people have become more and more sophisticated and doing what they do so that you think you're more crazy. Like, they're so slick in how it comes across that they do it blatantly in front of others. Mm-hmm. And like my first episode, it was vile and disgusting. But over the years, it's become very sophisticated in how it's done. And you're looking like, okay, what is just happening here?
Yeah. No, some people obviously have perfected the art of doing this sort of thing, right? I think there was an incident at a school as well once.
Oh,
right.
Yes, I was at touring a school for an elementary open house, and there were about 24 parents there. Some of us had our younger children with us, and we were touring through a classroom, and we were exiting the classroom. And as some of the other parents were wrapping up and they were viewing artwork or watching the students currently in the class, this gentleman brushed up against me like he was a big ass cat or kitten. And I was so startled because it's like, okay, was I in his way? But I couldn't have been in his way because the pathway was clear, but the brush lingered so long and it was so close and intent that, is this more than what I think it is? And after he did it, brushed up against me like that, it was like I didn't exist. He didn't look my direction. He didn't acknowledge me. It was nothing. So how do you go about rubbing up against someone, getting away with it, and then acting like, no, it never happened? Yeah, it's very skilled.
So what that means is it's been done many times before, and sometimes it's produced results. Right?
What do you mean produced results?
Well, clearly the guy, whoever this guy was, he wanted to see where it would go, right? To express interest in a way.
How is that expressing interest? There was no eye contact. There was nothing. So what am I supposed to bag some nuts? I mean, what are you supposed to do here? I mean,
something, smile at him, whatever,
Or try to make eye contact. Try to reach out to him.
To see if there's mutual interest.
Because I remember when this happened, and I told you, I was like, OMG, like, what is this?
I remember.
What does this mean? Like, I've never had anything happen, and you found it funny. Not funny as in, you got what you deserve, but you found it funny that it was just so brazen and so skilled at how it was executed that it just blew your mind.
Correct. So that means that it's been done before many times with some results, right? That's why the guy did it. Yeah.
But it's in front of other people. Someone else could have saw it. I mean,
right. But it's so again, as you said, it's so subtle that you can always sort of say, "Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't mean that."
Exactly. And that is where you start second guessing yourself, saying, "Okay, maybe I'm reading into things.
Right.
I'm wrong.
Did it really happen?
Did it really happen? No. I mean, because typically when someone's interested in you, you smile, you make eye contact, you engage. This was straight up brushing up against. I mean, I guess it was purely sexual. There was meant to be no talking.
It's just a sexual overture, right? To see if there's mutual interest.
I'm too old school. It went right over my head, but I knew something was wrong. But it went right over my head.
No, it's definitely a pervasive problem, right? I mean, I'm sure it happens in everyone's lives, and I'm sure it happens to a lot of people. And there was this campaign a few weeks ago. A lot of people started tagging themselves, right, saying "Me too," and it's true. It's happened to a lot of people.
Here's another situation that one can encounter. I remember that you have the situations where they're blatant and disgusting, and then you have the other situations where they're subtle and you're second guessing yourself. But there are times where it's happening and you could actually be in unsafe circumstances. For example, I was dating this guy and I was the designated driver for him and his friends. And we went to a club, and the club was like 30 minutes away from where we live, like in Monterey. And we were driving back. I was driving back because I was a designated driver on some of these back farm roads coming back from Monterey. And it was like pitch black dark. So I'm driving the car. There's no other cars on the road. And, we're all chilling and relaxing. And then as I'm driving, I feel a hand come up from the back seat and is basically molesting me and groping me. And, okay, there's farmland. There's ditches on the side. So you have to kind of keep your wits about you because one, you can end up in a ditch or dead. Or two, if you're not paying attention, there's a car can come out of nowhere and you can ram into them. So once I understood exactly what was going on, that someone wasn't actually tapping me, trying to get my attention, I grabbed the bastard's hand and I flung it back. But when I think about it now, I didn't scream. I didn't yell. I didn't say anything. And I squeezed this person's hand very, very badly and hard. So I know that it caused a great deal of pain, but there was complete silence in the background. And I'm thinking, what should I have done? Should I have pulled the car off to the side of the road and pitch black dark and addressed them? Well, no. As a female, it could be a very potentially unsafe situation because the guy I'm dating, these are his friends. Mm-hmm. And they've been drinking and everything else. So you don't know how this may unfold. Yeah. So, I decided to keep driving my way back to safety and get home and drop them off because this could have possibly turned into something that was much, much worse and detrimental. Mm-hmm. So you're making split-second decisions and,
And this guy you were dating, he didn't acknowledge any of this or he pretended not to see you fling someone's arm, one of his friend's arms, and he said nothing.
He said nothing. He claimed to know nothing, and he was shocked. But I find it hard to believe that he doesn't know his friends, and he doesn't know what they're capable of. Because my gut tells me they went back and they chit chatted, and they were shooting the breeze. They were laughing and giggling. I think they wanted the experience of copping a feel of some chocolate, and I was the opportunity to do so. And that's one for the belt notch. And I think that's what it went back to. So it's unfortunate, but you really have to look at your safety and get yourself back to safety. So how did I deal with it? I did address the guy that I was dating. I told him what happened. He said he felt bad, but that makes you very closed off from people. And you have to really think about your safety. Because this is the second situation that's very potentially, it could have ended up on the wrong end of the spectrum with the guy coming to the bedroom window and this one. So I think as women, I didn't blame myself. First of all, let's be clear. At no point in any of these incidences did I blame myself. Mm-hmm. But I did question, was it my imagination or not? And did I over or underreact? And I think that we should not do that. If you believe it happened, and that's the end of it. Don't try to say, did I do too much? Did I do too less? Maybe it was me. There was something I did wrong. This is what it is. It's wrong. And you need to make sure that you're safe and secure. And even if no one believes you, you need to trust and believe yourself. I mean, that's what I stand by. Trust and believe yourself, whether you have no one in your corner or not. You seem shocked right now.
Yeah, it's both of them seem like very close shaves, right? You've got someone outside your bedroom, and then you're traveling. It's dark,
right?
And I think it's hard to say. It's hard to say what to do with these things. But I think speaking up, is the right thing to do. If it's totally subtle,
you don't think bagging nuts is the way to go?
No, I think both are wrong. Whether they're, whether someone's, all these, cute sort of names, but it's wrong. Yeah, I think it's wrong. It's, it's touching someone without their consent, and it's wrong.
Well, let me ask you this. In this day and age with Tinder and all these other dating sites where it's clear that people are just meeting up to hook up, do you think that how we define adult molestation, sexual harassment and groping, whatever you want to call it, do you think that is also going to impact how you define it? Because things are so much more free and liberal compared to how they were back then.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got, that's a different story, right? I mean, if you...
Do you think that changes people's expectations?
No, if you're looking... I mean, these are all cases where, power was being used, right, to abuse people, right?
Or opportunity.
So I think, I think that doesn't change, right? I think it's quite clear what's wrong and what's right. I don't think these apps, will change anything, right? I don't think so.
So the question is, you're saying whether you are looking for it or not. If you're looking for it,
right,
it's cool.
Then the field is clear, right? Then your intent is clear.
But
right?
If you're not, then...
Right. But if you're not, then, of course, it's a violation, right? Whichever way you see it.
So, I mean, how do we fix this?
Well, I think we have to make people aware, make, youngsters more aware that this is something this is what's right and what's wrong and
respecting
what's
boundaries.
acceptable and, what's not. I think it'll take an entire couple of generations to change these kind of attitudes, right? Because a lot of this is just excused or, bragging, people brag about stuff, right?
Yes, bragging rights. It's like high school behavior, middle school, high school behavior.
And that's also, I think, is wrong. I mean, why should it be high school behavior? It should not be, that shouldn't be a behavior in high school either, right? I mean, why don't we sort of change that and say, let's be humans, let's respect humans.
So no bagging nuts.
No.
I'm highly disappointed.
I can tell.
So the only nuts I'm going to be bagging are yours.
Yes.
And you'll be buttering my buns.
Legally. So.
Well, that's all I have to share today. You have any other final thoughts on this?
No. I think it was quite a heavy topic, but I think we've talked about a few things and hopefully some food for thought for everyone.
So you're my Mr. David Copperfield.
Yes, a legally wedded one.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Are you disappointed this episode has come to an end? Well, we are keeping it going with our real talk questions. One real talk question is, have you or someone you know bagged some nuts or buttered some buns? If so, tell us about it. What was it like? And why did you do it? Email us your real talk answers. Let us know what you think about this episode and comment on our website. Our next ridiculous episode is called What the Fuck Did You Just Say? The release date is December 15th, 2017. Finally, I am closing the show with some real talk. Even monsters need sustenance. These people feed off of shock, shame, and silence. Most importantly, silence. You must be crazy. No one would believe such a story. Yet, here you are with these feelings and recurring thoughts. It's so easy to bury it in your mind and trudge ahead. Enough time passes, then it's like it never happened. But it did. It's like it leaves a scent on you, and the next sexually perverse predator you encounter will pick up on that scent. Stop the cycle of abuse and reclaim your power. These types of people like to feed off of you and make you weak. It is dead-ass wrong. Turn your sadness into power and stop these fuckers in their tracks. Embolden yourself. Cleanse your spirit. Because you run your life and no one else, and don't ever get that twisted. How was that for some ridiculous honesty? For immediate episode access, engage with the show with a simple click to subscribe or follow. Now give our episode links to your friends, family, and associates. Give it to your frenemies. Hell, give it to your enemies. Bring laughter to others and show your love for this podcast.
Please subscribe to our show and tune in next week for another episode of Mr. Difficult and Mrs. Demanding, Keeping It Real podcast. If you'd like to ask us a general question, provide your comments, or make a topic suggestion, then email us at difficultanddemanding@gmail.com. Please follow the show on Twitter at Mr. D and Mrs. D, one word.